Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Kashif Booth podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with a guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs, the lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is Laurelle Jones. She is a producer, first AD, production manager, all around like brilliant, extraordinary, creative. And it's so great to have her on the show. We've met properly only like 2.5 years ago, I think, and we hit it off straight away, and it was great. So, Laurelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I should have asked this before, but do I look like in the camera or do I look at you? Because I always trying to want to be connected with my audience.
Yeah. I would say look into the camera, look at me. It's fine. So yeah.
Thank you.
Nah, it's great to have you on. So,
Yeah.
Laurel and I had been following each other on social media for a while. And we silently were like recommending each other for other projects without actually having met each other.
So true.
So
So true.
so it was just kind of like that, and we never had met. So, and then we eventually met, and it was great. So, like, I like a writer director called Tiana Banton. She's actually been on the podcast way back in season 1. She reached out to me for a project, but I knew I didn't have the capacity at the time, and I really wanted like Tiana to work with like a really experienced producer who could take the project to another level. So I recommended Laurelle, and then Laurelle was going to produce this film called Sunday Dinner with Monique Needham, but then she was too busy, so she recommended me. And I've always been a fan of Monique's work, so I was like, oh yeah. And when I heard the concept, I was like, this is great. And then I heard you were still on part of the project, so I was like, oh, it'd be great to work with Laurelle. And then we shot that in 2022. Yeah, and that crazy how time is like ticking away, right? And that was just the concept trailer, which was
Eminem's Fund. You got to drop it in there. Eminem's Fund.
Eminem's Fund concept trailer. I think that was like 90 seconds, wasn't it? I think it was like a 90-second thing. And if you've ever had to like shoot a trailer for a film you haven't written, then you know how difficult that is. And especially when you're working with like a brand and they're giving you unrealistic deadlines. So I always say to people, we went from Monique and I having a call on the Tuesday to me saying, oh, we're going to have to shoot next week, Saturday. She was like, are you sure we can do this? I said, yeah, of course. And we did. So, and we had the brilliant Laurelle as first AD who just kind of ran the ship so well that she even had to leave early. I remember we had to leave early and I was panicking like, I can't do this. I had to overtake it. But he was like, you've got it. And we literally just wrapped it afterwards. So yeah, so it's been good. And then after that, we did the full film in early 2023 when we won Eminem's Fund and got 25K to make the film. And you can watch it on Amazon Prime in the US and in the UK.
Yeah. I just wanna rewind.
Mm-hmm.
You said that I couldn't be the producer on Sunday Dinner. That's actually incorrect. I wasn't asked. I was just asked, can I make a suggestion of people? And I suggested you. So I just want you to know, honey. It was all
okay.
you.
Well, I'm grateful. I'm thankful. But we turned out to be like the best team, I feel like, because we went through a lot, and that was such a great experience for me because we had some trying times on that set, and it definitely taught me that, oh, I need to learn to be a first AD. I need to know how to run a set from the floor perspective, not just getting it done. And since then, like, I've shadowed Laurelle to learn how it works, and I think obviously it's opened up doors for more money, which is great, and we'll get into how freelancing is. However, it's just good to have those extra skills because you literally never know what's going to happen in production. So yeah. But what was it like for you? Just what was your experience like remembering like us all working together and knowing each other's work? Well, me and Monique anyway, and me and you, and then finally being able to like work together.
It's funny, even with you giving the introduction of the fact that we followed each other and then we knew of each other and then we just bam, we're on set. I feel like that's kind of how my life has gone. Like there's been a couple of projects where I think as well because of COVID, there's a lot of, you feel like you've known person, you follow somebody and social media or whatever. You just never know when you might actually be working with that person. You never know. And
Yeah.
it's like, even literally the last couple projects, there's been people I've been literally same kind of thing, talking to for years, like 2 years. And then we have like a moment, I'm like, hold on, this is actually our first time actually physically together. Like, what? Like, it's mad.
So many
We've
times.
learned to build relationships in way different ways because of the internet, right? But yeah, the project was really good. You were giving me some memories that I completely forgot. I didn't even remember that I first AD'd the first one. I can't lie.
Mm.
Because the second time I was production manager. So I was thinking maybe you got your wires crossed because obviously I took over
Yeah.
ADing on the second. And then
We're
I
not
was
even
like,
going to get into that because all I will say, guys, yeah, I'm not naming names, but we had a first AD who was happy to say to us, well, we're going to run over 3 hours and wasn't going to do anything about it. And that's it.
but you're right. And I feel like one of the good things that we had is, yeah, you're correct. We clicked pretty much very well. I feel like we're very direct people. I feel like some of those skills though are what producers have
Yes.
as well. So it helps us to do our job. We're straight to the point. We're very clear and direct and concise. Everyone knows my mouth is loud. It can come down, but generally loud. Whereas Kashif is more like this level all the way. I generally don't ever hear him raise his tone. But I was really impressed that he could still be here and deliver. Not to say that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that I shout just for the sake of it, but I guess that's the ADer in me as well. Like I know I'm very
Mm-hmm.
passionate. I talk fast. I command a presence, you know. But I really liked how I learned a lot from Kashif, and I'd like to think that I shared some stuff with Kashif as well. And I feel like that's always how it should be. Like with collaboration, when you meet people, when you work on different projects, you should never ever feel like you know everything. And it's sometimes the most maybe unusual space that you might learn something. Like I remember being on, I think it was the actual film, and meeting the script soup, which I think you brought on. I can't remember his
Oh,
name.
yeah. Anthony. Mm-hmm.
Anthony, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a bit of script soup in my own way, just the same way I learned how to first AD in my own way and then learn it properly. And I was just so fascinated that he was doing stuff that I was doing in my head, but sometimes would question myself, like, am I being a bit too much with it? Then to see someone that actually does it, doing it, you can sometimes, I say that to say, you can sometimes second guess yourself, especially if you're like a perfectionist and you can think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I need to do all of X and Z, Z and Y. And sometimes it appears someone's just doing A and B to get
Mm-hmm.
the job done. But
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
do all of this stuff. And sometimes it's because, again, maybe you wear many hats, so you've learned different angles and approaches to things. But I guess what I'm saying is don't second guess yourself. If that's what you need to achieve to get that grade B, A, do it, because I don't know where this is going, but yeah, like
No,
that was
but
something. Those are nuggets that I took. I love the
yeah.
bands that we had on set as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had really good energy. I feel like the crew and cast was actually really good. Like I think it's been a while since I've been with a crew and a cast where there's been a bit like obviously we had the odd characters, but I think we were able to be very professional and manage things very quickly. I remember I think one of the first nights we went over, but then we instantly was like, right, we're having a team meeting. How do we rectify this? How do we get this going? And I feel like for you as a producer to see that and make sure that's locked in before we go the next day and stuff like that are really good responses, you know? So yeah, it was cool. It was good.
It was so cool. I learned so much from you because, like I said, I needed to know how to run a set just in case.
Mm.
We work in independent film, so it's like the budget's never there. Okay, so you sometimes have to wear multiple hats. And like I did a film in December with self-funded with like it's a new collective that I'm now a part of, and we didn't have a budget for first AD. I was like, I'll do it. And they were all looking at me like, wow, you're a beast. Like the fact that you basically produced this whole thing. And most of the team was from America. So they flew over here to then shoot it. So I basically had to run the ship over here because obviously I'm the only UK person. And like, yeah, I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And because of the experience that I gained by shadowing yourself, knowing that I need these skills, I'm able to not only save money, but also do a good job. And that shoot wasn't the best as well. Like there was an actor who didn't know their lines and it kind of pushed us back. And she had it in her mind how we're going to shoot it. And I'm like, sis, like, don't ever do that. Just learn the lines. Like, and so we just had to feed her in. And I was doubling up as really assistant director. I was really like coaching to be like, okay, pause there, say that line. Okay, boom. Oh, we can do that shot now. Cool. Like, so you just have to do it. And that's what I learned. I learned that I needed that because again, the situation we had, I froze. I was like, what do I do in a situation? I'm supposed to rely on my first AD to make sure that we finish on time, So yeah, so it's not saying I have control issues but just in case.
Yeah. 100%. I think as well for me, like I mentioned earlier, I stumbled into first AD and it wasn't on purpose. I didn't even know that was a thing. I think when I think of film back in the day, obviously you first it's the actors, right? That's your thing. And then you learn, oh, there's a producer, then it's the director. I feel like the director is generally the name that everyone looks at.
Yeah.
When you're outside of the world of film. And then when you get into it, you're just doing stuff and then you start to get more budget and then you think, oh, what is that role? And then you're able to give someone else, you're able to delegate and trust that they can do it. So I stumbled across first AD and same thing you're saying, because I've been on projects where the money has been low, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just thought I was producing the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm very efficient with time. I'm very good at trying to stick to time, that kind of thing. And then I got a first AD one time and I was like, oh, okay. And then you start to learn like dividing the scripts into apes and all that good stuff. I've never been good with that stuff. So that used to be like a weakness for me and a stumbling gap. I used to think, because I used to first AD on music videos, I think more initially, when I was taking it seriously. And then I was like, but how do you do this apes page thing? It used to bug my head out. And then I was like, well, if I don't focus so much on that particular part of the maths, I actually still have managed to make the shooting schedule work and people have trusted me. But it's always every now and again, I'll be a bit like when I go to a new place and I'm like, like, Laurelle, just do your confidence and do your thing because you know what you're doing. But then I also, with like what you mentioned about being a producer and a first AD, I then learned as well quickly that I can't do both. And when I say I can't do both, is that I don't want to. I've been on situations where I've been a first AD. I've been a first AD and a producer, and I've had people be confused on set as to who I'm speaking to them as. And so when you're delivering instructions as a producer, it's very different to the first AD. When you're in a smaller confinement, that's different. But the more and more your crew grows, it can be a bit confusing. So little things like that made me think, oh, or even I've been on a set where I felt that because I've done both, one of them has outweighed the other. There's always going to be some moment where you think, I didn't really assist direct when they needed me the most in that specific bit, but I made sure the ship went. But then the director's unhappy because they missed that bit. And if there was just two separate people. So then what I've now said is that I don't mind producing and first ADing ish, but you have to make sure that someone else is on the ground producing on the day. So I can produce pre-production, I can pattern everything. And then on the days I can run as a first AD, but someone else has to come above me. As long as you get somebody in there, if it's the PM, because the producers don't need to be there anymore, which is me, that's cool. But then it allows me to say that in the background's getting sorted, Catering's getting sorted, all of them things, all of those random problems are getting sorted, where I can specifically focus and actually assist the director with whatever they need. Even when you mentioned, like, sometimes you step in as a director, and that's very true. So even as that role, I often like to go to rehearsals so I can see how directors do what they're doing. So I can see the chemistry that they have, so that should there need to be like a unit B and unit A, or should there be a moment where something's happened, I can step in and be like, yo, this is, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I think when I had to double up as a producer and first AD, I also had another producer. So they were from the US, but on the ground, they were able to deal with everything. So I didn't have to, I didn't have to. Right. Okay, so when we got to location, I was like, okay, this is your guy. Oh, catering, this is your guy. I I got other stuff to do here. I ain't got time for this. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, any logistics? Oh, and like if I leave first liaise with this person as a producer, I'm giving you this contact. And
That's
it's all
right.
about communication. It's all about communication. If you don't have communication, good, effective communication, or people who know how to reciprocate the good communication you're giving to your team member, that's what makes or breaks your project. And that's
Right.
what, yeah, it just makes or breaks your project in terms of how it's running. Because otherwise it's just gonna fall apart. So yeah. So guys, make sure you communicate and make sure you listen. Okay. So Laurelle, I want you to take me all the way back. How did you stumble into this crazy industry?
Okay, so what had happened was, I think I've always seen myself as somebody that has an imagination. So I would often hear a music video, hear a song, and imagine how I'd play out the music video. Most of the time I was in it, but I'd be like, oh, a little lock and talk here, a little lock and this here, have the camera here. Like that was just stuff that would play in my mind. I remember being a sucker for stuff like on the DVD where you could watch like the director's cut or the extra bits and stuff. That was all me. I loved all of that. Although I didn't have the correct language for what all of that meant. What I knew was it was the media, and I
Mhm.
knew that I wanted to be in the media. I remember studying about media at A levels and realizing like how important it is in our I guess in our world and the impact it has and us as an audience and the whole hypodermic syringe theory and all that good stuff. And I thought, wow, like I really want to have this influence on people, which is very bad if you think when you think of it like that. But that's how I thought. I was like, I want to have that influence. And my very, very first experience of working on set, I was about between 17 and 18 because it was in sixth form. And I just, my teacher in media, one of the teachers in media had connections in the industry and they needed somebody that studied graphics and media. And there was only like two of us. So my background is also in graphic design. So I was always between the two. And so I was put forward for this project, which ended up being it was a children's program that was on CBBC, but I don't know if it was called that back then. Could have been just anyway. And
Yes, it must be, right? Because that launched in
I
like
can't
the early
remember.
2000s. Yeah, it must be.
Yeah, no, but this is before then. You know how old I is. Anyway.
Black don't crack, I
So,
tell you. Okay.
so yeah, so I remember doing that, and basically the general consensus is we went to different places in the UK. So we did travel,
Oh.
and we went to schools and we spoke to young children. So I think they were like year 4, year 5, about their experiences of bullying on the playground. We then captured all their stories and we did stop motion of their stories, and it was all part of a bigger project. And that was it. Packed up, done it, enjoyed my experience. It was done. Didn't know anything about the industry then. So I just did this and thought it was great fun. Then I remember like years later when I had done a bit more stuff, seeing them run, then learning what IMDb was. I saw them on there, or I saw some news and it said that it had won a BAFTA. I was like, well, this was a real thing. Like I didn't, and
Yeah.
I was
Mm.
like, how? So back then I didn't know how to, I wasn't told about keeping contacts. Like I didn't know any of that stuff.
Mm.
I can tell you in my mind where the man lives because I remember us having a meeting in his house. I can tell you stuff like that. I don't remember the
Yeah,
door, but I
yeah,
know the road, like little stuff like that. But like, and then I remember finding it, and the company was called Wised Up. It is no longer existing. But the fact is, from that experience, I learned through experience that you need to never, like, you need to keep in contact with these people because they never ever reached out to tell me what
yeah.
had happened to the project. So I learned, okay, cool. Make sure you always just say, hi, how's it going?
Mm,
Project, and little stuff like that.
mm,
So that I guess that was my first time on set, and that was like 17, 18. I guess from then again, like I said, I just knew I wanted to be in the media. Still wasn't sure of what I did, but I guess I would say I was a production assistant. Now that I think of terminologies, I think I was in the art department as well. So it was a bit of a mix of stuff, kind of runner, do everything.
mm, mm.
But so my idea was I want to be in the media, but I don't know what my role is and I don't know what part of media it is. But I was determined to grab any job. So that was literally my standpoint from sixth form until I found comfortability. So I think from when I was about 17, the one of those, not what you know, but who you knows. A family friend of mine had worked in the music industry, and he knew a lot of contacts in radio. And so he knew I wanted to work in the media. So he was like, oh, I'll put you forward to be a runner for somebody. And then I got into radio. So I was just always working in radio from 18, 17. I was in and out of radio for about 10 or just over that years. I worked my way up from being like a runner to production assistant to then producing. And so that was like my main way, as in media. That was it for me. But alongside of that, I then started to realize I wanted to be in film and TV. So I always kept my job in radio, and then I would do this other stuff on the side, and this other stuff became film. When I was in university, I was in university for 4 years. 1 year because I didn't know if I really wanted to do the degree that I did. So I went and done like an art and design foundation course in Ravensbourne, not where it is now, which is in Greenwich O2, where it used to be in Elmstead Woods. Long trek. And then I ended up doing the exact same degree that I had deferred. Wasn't sure if I wanted to do it because I was still like, do I want to do graphics? Do I want to do film? I kept having this battle, and I felt like I had to choose one, is what it felt like when it came to the degree. So when I did my degree, I actually did media arts, film and TV, which tried to merge a lot of the two. And I studied abroad for one of my semesters in my second year. I went to a university called DeSales University in Pennsylvania. So I was there for 4 months, and they were like the best 4 months of my life in terms of my university experience. Because when I was here, I commuted every day. I was like, I'm not going to be broke. I'm going to stay in my parents' house. Like, I was just like, not here for it. I also felt like that way I could do work experience as and when I wanted to. So I had like a little job, as you do, like your Saturday or weekend job. And then every time you would have a break in the term, I'd find a job. So I'd do work experience and just work for free. So I'd be like 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. Like I just religiously did that since leaving college. And then I had this amazing experience studying in America, which was great because then I now all of a sudden live on campus. I'm experiencing uni for real, for real. I'm experiencing culture. And then studying over there, it blew my mind because you hear so much about, oh, here is so theory, but boy, is it theory. And so when I was over there, I did animation, script, screenwriting, photography, and then a course that mixed editing, sound and light together. So in nearly all of those classes, you literally well, very much the editing, sound and light one, you get taught one thing on Monday. So like 3-point lighting. Then you had to make a short about that. And then Friday, everyone watched everyone's stuff and critiqued it.
Wow.
That was literally how we were taught. And that was just thrown you in the deep end.
Yeah.
You had to learn thick skin real fast. But then the funniest thing is when I had done my art and design foundation course, that's literally what we did in art. So like we would do life drawing or we do like different materials. And then I remember we used to do these exhibitions. You put everyone's work up and you walk around and critique everyone's work. So in theory, I had learned that, but not for editing, sound and light.
Right.
So it was deep. I remember making a music video. I made so much stuff. I learned Premiere. I think it was Final Cut Pro more than actually an Avid. So that was the editing suites, learned how to do lighting and obviously do sound. So, and then one of the projects was to do like a music video. Also during that time was when I did script writing, as I mentioned. And so we had to write scripts constantly. So it turns out that one of those scripts that I wrote in that 4 months of my whole uni ended up being the very first film that I ever made myself. And so that was then my first real experience of being on a film set, real experience. And that was again not what I knew because I wrote the script, but I ended up meeting somebody, we a mutual friend basically, and his name is Sam Ofori-Addo. He was part of Blink TV. What's that? I can't even, oh my gosh, is it Blink TV? Let's not refer to anything because Laurelle's very bad at referencing.
Okay.
But anyway, That was a really good popular TV channel. Watch when you post this, I'm gonna say it's this. I'm gonna at them
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's like UK Blink TV. But anyway,
Mm,
he was part of all of that stuff. He's quite a well-known person and has been in the industry for a while, very much in indie and very much in supporting people on the come up. So anyway, he is who I gave my script to. And just on the off chance I knew he worked in the media. And he said to me, we're going to make your film. And I was like, okay, cool. And then that was it. Never heard nothing about it. We never had no conversation. Notes to me, he had always remembered it. And I remember him one year saying to me, oh, Laurelle, like I got the crew together. We're going to make your film. And I was like, oh my gosh, you remembered that film? And he was like, yeah. I told you I was going to make it. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I then was on set, as you do. It's your film and it's indie, so you could do what you want, right?
mhm,
There was a lot of Black females on there, so I met quite a few people that were on the come up as well. And we then made this film. We had a lot of young people in it as well. It's not probably, it's on YouTube still. I was very hands-on because, like I said, it was a very small team and stuff, and we were all just doing what we could do, right? However, one of the actresses on that film, Etosha Hilton, um, was also a writer and director, which I didn't know at the time.
mhm,
And so how she saw me on that set, and it was directed by a lovely lady called Danita. It was the two of us, yeah. So I was a writer and she was a director, but I was very much kind of producey directory, I guess is how
mhm.
I ended up being, because I knew how I wanted things to be and I had that flexibility to do that. So yeah, so she then approached us basically after it and was like, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed the experience with you guys. It's so good to see Black young women. I'm a Black woman. Can you now do my film? Because I also write. And I was like, huh? Then it was like, no, that's not my thing. Like that was my first time. I'm good. And I was like, oh, let me explore this. Like, so she said, oh,
Okay.
can you produce it? Because you produced
Mhm.
that. I said, honey, I did not produce. What's that? Never knew what that even meant.
Right, right.
So from her experience as being an actor on set,
Uh-huh.
she told me what she understood about
Uh-huh.
producing. I then spent my time researching and trying to just make the
Okay.
project work.
Uh-huh.
And that is how I learned how to produce.
Okay. And Natasha Hilton, she's massive now. Like she's doing
Oh,
so
honey,
well.
she's doing
Wow.
amazing. My girl,
Yeah.
my sis. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so then that film was called Leah. And that film, Leah, went on to like be in over 11 film festivals. And that's when I learned the film festival circuit, which I didn't know of any of that stuff, but then
Right. Mm-hmm.
before. So all of this has been stuff that I've learned on the job. So we just put it into stuff. We just
Uh-huh.
submitted it and it got into places internationally, won awards. And I was like, oh, what is this? This is a world. I was
Uh-huh.
amazed. I remember,
Uh-huh.
I think it was that film. It may not have been, but I feel
Was
like
it number 27, that one?
no, that was the very first one. The
Uh-huh.
film that we did was called Leah. So we even
Okay.
we did like a trailer for it first,
Uh-huh.
and then we shot the actual thing. It was written
Right.
by Tosha.
Uh-huh.
And but I think I was trying to remember if I flew out for one of the festivals, but that's the story for another day. But I know that you then starting to get into the world of festivals, you
Uh-huh.
understand it a bit more. So I would say then every job I did led me to another one. So I either met somebody on set that was like, boom, let's do this.
Uh-huh.
Or I then started to understand what I was doing and put myself out there in places. So
Uh-huh.
most of the time when I would put myself out there, I would apply for stuff like production management because I manager role, because I wasn't
Uh-huh.
sure, you can get comfortable with people to produce. How do I really know if I'm producing, if I'm doing it with people that
Yeah.
know me? So I would never
Uh-huh.
apply for a producer role outside of people I didn't know. It was more production manager role. And then I started to realize, oh no, I've got this. And then every time I did that, I learned from who the producer was and learned different ways of doing things. So most of it has been through experience. So yeah, that's that's the
That's the
whole yeah.
Well, I love asking that question because I love hearing people's journey. Like sometimes you just work with each other and you don't know how we got to the point in our careers and
100%.
what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
us what led to us making a name for ourselves that people hear of you and stuff like that. Because like I first heard about you through what's her name? Candice.
Oh
Um, yes, that's what I
yeah.
first heard of you, and that's because I was producing her film
Which one did you
during.
produce again?
It didn't actually get made. It was a short film that
Oh, okay.
but we were doing that through Bluebird Pictures with Joelle Davis Company. And
Yes.
we got Nonso Anonzi to be in it. Like it was ready to go. Atoshia was going to direct, but then she got a new job. And then that kind of affected timetables. So then he was going to go back to New Zealand to do Sweet Tooth. So it just ended up not happening. So that's when I first heard about you. So I was like, oh, okay, who's this? And like, you're amazing. So yeah,
Your
so
brain
it's
is good because I can't remember how I first heard about you, but I know I stalked all your stuff because I was like, oh, okay, you do web series, you do films, you do all okay.
yeah. Yeah, my memory is like scarily good. Sometimes it's very annoying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's stuff I want to forget. But anyway, so yeah, and that's how I heard of you, and it was like working with you and now hearing your journey. It makes sense, and I think we always say to young people, like we're mentoring them, like, okay, you learn by doing because you study all of this. And that's the thing. You've literally said every single thing that you studied, what you did, but yet none of them told you the intricate roles that happen when you work in film and TV. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's like
100.
you skipped over all of that. You're just like, oh, this is the role of a producer. This is why you're a lecturer and there's people who actually work. Because like, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like you get into the industry and you start working and you see there's so many different departments,
Yes.
grips,
Yes.
like cameras, not just, oh yeah, like nah, grips are in there too. Well, you know about the lighting department, and I'm like, oh, there's the gaffer, there's the
It was the
sparks.
focus puller for me. I remember the first time I learned what a
Uh-huh.
focus puller was. I said, so that man is pulling the focus? What you doing holding the camera? That's no disrespect to
Yeah,
anybody that is
yeah.
a DOP. But
Mm-hmm.
for somebody that didn't understand that, I thought you just had the camera. And
Yeah.
then you learn, oh no, but it's a team effort. Or even when you use Steadicam, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's not always, it's you hire someone else to use that. It's not necessarily the director. And you're like, oh, it is a team effort that is
Yes.
actually making
Yeah.
every single department
Mm-hmm.
move.
Mm-hmm. And when people say to you like, oh, well, I'm trying to apply for these jobs and they keep saying you need experience, or you wonder why when you have this degree and you go to apply for a job and they're like, sit down. Like, no, you're not getting this. Because those degrees aren't actually setting you up for the industry. It's not the type of like, you can't get a graduate role
Mm.
in the job in the film that we're working because everything you've learned isn't required for
I wonder what it's
for
like now, though. I wonder if they've tweaked this because surely education has to move forward, right? Like, even when I hear people say they go to film school, I'm really
uh-huh
intrigued. So I always ask questions like, so what is it actually like?
uh-huh
Because I've wondered, do I need to go there? Sometimes I've thought, like, do I need to go there? Something's missing. Surely the film school will teach me that
uh-huh
missing gap.
yeah
And then sometimes I have conversations, and again, it depends on what role you want to do as to how well it is for you. And also it can depend on the
uh-huh
specific lecturer and the time that you go and all this kind of moving parts. But I've then come to realize that I think education is key, but I try to learn what I feel I specifically need. So as I'm doing a job, there's a missing link. I'm like, okay, I need to go and do a workshop on that, or I need to do a course on that, rather than necessarily take the avenue of paying money, which I
uh-huh
have wanted to do before, to just study.
yeah
Because I feel like doing it that way means that I'm then learning what I specifically need. Not to say that you're always going to be learning, but then
uh-huh
it's like, it's sometimes, unless you need to know it, it doesn't register. So at least I'm now associating it to be like, oh, boom, that's my
uh-huh
that's my
uh-huh
missing link
uh-huh
here.
uh-huh I think it's a catch-22. I think because like I know Elizabeth who won a BAFTA like last year, like
Yeah.
she went to NFTS, did a producing thing, and then made the film that ended up going all the way to the BAFTAs and loved that. So proud of her. However, it's not going to be the case for everybody. So don't think that if you go, you're going to end up winning a BAFTA. Do you get what I mean? Like, that's not the case. I know some people who've done like production management at NFTS and they had to start from the ground up. So I don't know. It just depends. Like, it really does depend. I think go if you want to refine your skills, go if you just want to build your network.
Yeah, that's
That's the main
true.
thing. It's the network. It's that pool of people. That's also what it is. So
Yeah,
I think that's what you kind of can do because you have to learn by being on the set. I don't think it's necessarily changed. I think they've just created better entry level positions for people to get in. So there's so many people who I meet now who've never been a runner because they were able to get like an apprenticeship or a scheme that put them
right,
in as
right.
like a production assistant or in
Yes.
factual TV. They were able to be straight into as a researcher. And
Yeah,
I love that
yeah.
for them because I don't feel like everybody should be struggling as a runner. For 2, 3 years before you get a step up. Like so
Yeah, 100.
that's what's changed. So
Mm,
so I think that is good. And I think us now being in a position where we mentor other people and help them, it kind of helps them as well. So those are the different things that they just don't tell you when you're in uni per se.
yeah,
Uni. When you're in a film school or creative, like proper course where you have to practically make things, and then there's a difference.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I feel like people say, oh, okay, that's cool. Because I always say to people like, the only one time somebody's asked me about my degree, and that's because they were like, "Oh, we went to the same uni, but I started like 10 years before you went." That was literally it. Nobody's ever asked me what I got for my degree.
I feel like the degree stuff happen on the third party websites for recruitment,
Hmm. Yeah.
like the LinkedIn and stuff. When you're doing AI and then you
Hmm.
say only show me the people that have a degree,
Hmm.
that's when it matters. But
Hmm.
the sad part of that is obviously you're not looking at someone's experience, you're just assuming. And sometimes
Hmm.
as well, I can't remember who told me this, but they were like, having a degree isn't necessarily about what you've done in the degree, like whether it's media or whatever. It's more the fact that having a degree and making it to the end shows perseverance of
Yeah.
character, because
Yeah.
it's such a journey to go through your 3 years, your 4 years, your 7 years, depending on what you're doing, that it
Hmm.
shows that, there's a level of stamina that you have to
Hmm.
withstand. I remember going to uni and the people that was there on the first day were definitely not there on on the last day, and that was just of year one. So there's a level of persistence and growth that does happen when
Hmm.
you do go to university. Yes, that you may
Hmm.
not be able to show as well as you can with showing your certificate as someone else. They'd have to try and tell you what they went
Hmm.
through, whereas the
Yeah.
certificate in theory shows, okay, do you know what, I
Hmm.
know that you went through, you've learned how to struggle, you've learned financially to,
Hmm.
do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't know if they always care so much about what the degree is as well. I don't
Hmm.
think it's the best reflection, but I do know, especially with all these AI selections and all these third party websites, the moment they tick only show me people with a degree, you've automatically lost quite a few people that have amazing skills
Hmm.
and can do a job from experience, unfortunately. So I think those are the moments when it matters. But when I'm actually on set and stuff or in the job, you're right. I don't often hear people ask me about.
No, no, at all. For you being in the industry for so long, not just in film, but like in the media industry, how have you seen it kind of change? But also, what's your experience as being like a black woman, as being a producer, being, as you said, loud and direct? What would you say your experiences have been?
There's a lot of things there. So I feel like, I have to say I'm truly blessed to say that I've been able to move from different mediums. I think when I've done it, I've not always appreciated that it is something that not everyone's been able to do. I remember somebody asking me, like, how do you navigate that? And I was like, do you know what? I didn't actually realize it. I've just done it. I've just always been quite a hard worker and just taken a job when it's been within what I feel like I can do, not realizing sometimes, oh, you've gone from radio, you've
Hmm.
gone to film, you've done web series, you've done music videos, you've even done a bit of TV. Like, I've not seen it as that, whereas some people have stayed within a specific realm, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just me
Hmm.
acknowledging that. I feel how has it changed? Um, I feel like everyone's experience is of their own. I feel like for myself, there are still certain, I guess, boxness happening. So it's almost like I have found it very hard to get into scripted and unscripted television. I remember there was a moment I was like, right, that's what I want to be in. Why do you want to do that, Laurelle? In my head, I thought because with film, I'm done struggling on these budgets, done being, most of the film is independent. I feel like if I was just to get my foot in TV, I won't struggle no more. There's money there. There's a production company. That was my
Mm,
mindset. And then I remember going through a journey of that and being on a what would you call it? A workshop? No, a scheme called
uh-huh.
Procreates that was done with the New Black Film Club and the BFI and Screen Skills during lockdown. And I remember them saying directors and producers, particularly of people of color, to come on and, and I remember getting a mentor, which was Andy Mundy Castle, who did White Nanny, Black Child. And he was really cool. At first I was like, oh, but he's a director. Are you sure you want to connect me? But cool. Do you know, I learned so much. It was really good. And I learned as well with mentors, this you have to give as well as take. Like you have to be
Uh-huh.
prepared to
Uh-huh.
explore or whatever. That's a conversation for another day. But anyway, it was really good being able to hear from somebody that also has done his own production company, very much independent, and now gets hired from channels to do it. And I thought, oh, okay, that's another way. Also, hearing the fact that I think he gave me some just knowledge of stuff like with TV, a lot of the time they don't like you to cross over. Like you have to kind of work up for them to see how you do things. I guess
Yes.
probably the same thing we've explored about having experience
Hmm.
and what does that actually look like. And I was like, you mean I gotta be a runner again after all these years?
No, out of order,
But
man.
then, but then I was like, oh, okay, it's hard. It's a hard door. And then I'll get some. I've had interviews with like production companies that have done work for the BBC, or for Channel 4 even, and they've been. So the fact that I've got an interview means that my CV must have something because they obviously can say if you're in front of
Uh-huh.
them, that means you've got something, right? And then they would say to me, "You're really good. You've got really good experience." But and it was they needed somebody with experience in scripted or unscripted.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I'm trying. And one of the things they would say
Uh-huh.
to me is one of the things that held quite weight was that I've worked on a web series, and that was the closest thing that made them
Uh-huh.
feel like stuff like the language, because that's something very key that is very different in TV.
Uh-huh.
Um, would help set me apart, but it still wasn't enough. So I was like, okay, cool. Then I'll be on other projects where people I'm working with people that are in the BBC or whatever. And they're like, oh, but Laurel, you've got so much stuff. And I'm like, I know. I don't know. So then I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna push. I'm not gonna not push, but I'd say I'm not making that my focus point anymore, is what happened. And I thought, you know what? I really enjoy film. When I did get experience in television, it was in a charity TV station, so it doesn't have the same kind of weight as high-end television. So once I learned that as well, I was like, okay, I can't
Uh-huh.
stay here for too long because
Uh-huh.
this isn't moving anywhere. So I took what skills I needed and was
Uh-huh.
able to move. But what I have done is I've just kept looking and just kept knocking on doors. As I shared with you just before coming doing the recording, like I just had the month of April where I wasn't working, literally wasn't working, but I was trying to update my LinkedIn and trying to apply for jobs that I thought, oh, I'm not doing that again. I'm actually going on these websites again
Uh-huh.
just to give it a try, just to see what happens. But what I find is the doors that often open are film. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it good and I'm going
Uh-huh.
to do it big. So I will just, wherever my lane is, I'm just going to hold it and stand firm. If I do get an opportunity in TV, then so be it. But I've not made it now like the creme de la creme. I
Uh-huh.
genuinely just enjoy producing. And I feel
Uh-huh.
like that is something I'm passionate about. If you give me a project, I produce it. I do a lot of podcasts now. Making me a producer is the best thing. I like to organize. I like to be like, right, how can I reach this? How can I push this? How can we work on this script? How can we do that? That's me. So as long as
Uh-huh.
I am doing that, I feel like where I do it isn't so much of a thing. But
Uh-huh.
obviously in different places you learn
Yes.
more. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Of course, of course.
And then I guess your other bit about being black,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes I feel like because it's been indie as well. No, I haven't always worked on projects where there's been a lot of black crew. I sometimes deliberately choose to work on projects where there isn't, just to get
Mm-hmm.
myself out of a comfortability, as it were, and remind myself of just other experiences that you can
Mm-hmm.
have. I don't think I've necessarily experienced outright racism, but I have definitely experienced where I may have been put on a project because I'm black and female, and I usually just use that as cool.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily, I just know that I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm confident in my own skin, so I just
Mm-hmm.
use that to project that basically.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like there's been the odd time where um I've experienced working with somebody that was a white man, and I was told that he was a bit with women and then a bit with men. But when I was on set, I didn't experience any of that. But then I also don't know if that's because I just, when I hear stuff, I just try and knock it out of my head and just do my
Mm-hmm.
job and focus on my job. So I
Right.
feel like for me, um, personally, in the way that my experiences have been, that has helped me not necessarily be distracted by some of the stuff that has been there.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't necessarily, yeah, I guess so. I guess when I have experienced it, I've used it for just to continue and
Mm-hmm.
not use it as a distraction. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, if I'm your token, it's cool. I'm gonna show you what I can do and keep it moving.
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
do my job still and keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And I think it's the thing is that it's a catch-22 in this situation working in this industry because I've had the same thing you said about where I've tried to enter spaces and they're like, oh, well, you don't have this or you don't have that or whatever. And it's like me doing independent film and doing independent projects has put us in a unique position. And I think it's a great position. And the reason why I say that is because as much as we may feel like, okay, we're getting skipped over certain things, the right people are always going to get us the jobs that we are supposed to work on anyway. And the right opportunity comes with that right job, even though you feel like, you're missing out on it or you feel like the consistency is in this and whatever, listen, if you ever got into unscripted TV, you'll see how those budgets are just like indie film, okay? They'll give you 50K for one damn show and you're like, how the hell are we supposed to pull this off?
And
And
this
I'm
is
just
what I've
like,
been learning as well. I've been
yeah,
from people, and I'm
yeah,
like, oh, the grass isn't as green as I thought it was. I just
no.
assumed. I
Yeah.
assumed.
And it's the same as everybody else. Like I worked on this show for BET a couple of years ago. That budget was
Oh,
not there, right? That budget was not there. But I got that job because my friend was the series producer. So she was like, I want you to come on board as one of the assistant producers. They weren't trying to get me. The other exec producers were like, nah, I don't know. He doesn't have any credits of this, that, whatever. And so she was just like, well, I told you this is who I want. You told me that you're going to give your person. I ended up speaking to this person, telling them all what I've done. And they're like, oh, yes, the reason why I know the series producer is because you directed my pilot. And so then I
it's
got the
happened
job.
now.
And then but then the irony is that the producing team, because the producing team was all just us who were black anyway, and like we were on job. The production team weren't on job, and that's all I'll say. Okay, so but and I think what I really want to emphasize is the importance of people like you and I, where I feel like we have an advantage because we have experience doing it independently and mainstream. We know what it takes to pull off something. And that may sound like, oh, we're arrogant or whatever, but I'm telling you, there's a difference because you work with people who haven't had the reach of understanding what the full scope of a team is when it comes to film. And they're so used to hustling and doing it this way. And that's why in some cases, there's no progression in their career because they're staying in that space. And then you have people who are tired of being in that mainstream space with just white people and they feel like I need to break free and I need to do it independently. Then when they do it independently, they don't want to listen to you because they're used to having the white people's money to get everything done. So when I'm telling them, you can't afford that, you need to
They're like,
scale back. No, we
yeah,
can
yeah,
do
yeah,
that. No, I know. Da, 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 da. Oh, we can ask for favors. We can do that. Sure. Then when it goes over budget, like $2,000, who's paying that? Because not me. Do you understand? And I think that's the difference. And I think we're just in a unique position like that. And the time is coming. That's why we're continuously working, and doing what we're doing. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because you've worked with like a Christian, like faith-based channel as well. What was that experience like for you to be able to like, work on something like that, but also like being a producer as well, because obviously you want to being a Christian and then also being able to be in the spaces where you can like produce great stuff, because I know you recently did that scripted film which looks amazing, like so yeah, so tell me, what was that experience like, and like how do you utilize those experiences?
Okay, so I feel like I just make stuff that I like.
Mm-hmm.
So if I like, and sometimes that's not necessarily the story.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized that about myself. I can go on a project and it's because I like the person. I can see their potential.
Mm-hmm.
Their film may not be banging, but I really want this person to win and I know what they need to do.
Yeah,
I've learned
yeah.
that about, I've seen myself go on a project. You know how it goes. There's always a moment in a project where you get to that lull, where you got to give
Mm-hmm.
yourself that push. And it's at that
Mm-hmm.
point you have to ask yourself, why am I on this again? Why did I do this again?
Yeah.
So saying that to say, if I connect with a script, cool. If I connect with the person, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So your question was, how do I navigate, like, how was I doing producing within the Christian?
Yeah, and especially as a Christian woman as well, what was that experience like? Because I've not met anybody who's worked for like a Christian broadcasting channel. You'll be at church, and no shade, but these people don't know what they're doing on the mics or the live stream, and it's just like, whoa, and they don't like to listen. So, like, so what was that experience?
Disclaimer, some people may say keep the church talk in the church. Disclaimer, but
Well,
just
I'm not
saying.
them people, so
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, so do you know what? I've worked for more than one Christian
Okay.
organization before,
Mm.
and that's never been my aim or goal. It's just been doors that have opened and I've walked in and I've done my stuff. Yeah, I've
Mhm.
never necessarily thought I want to work in a Christian organization ever before in my life. It's just been what's happened. So I would say that there is a level, if I would say that if you look at it this way, it's charity usually is what they would come under the umbrella of charity organizations. So if you look at it in that sense, you already know that with charities, you don't have much budget.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You don't. So even though you may have more budget than not working in a than doing it independently, you're
Uh-huh.
still never going to have the level of budget that a non-charity organization will have. So again, I think it leans back to what you mentioned about us knowing how to do things with different budgets, having what I've now called it like that little rough edge, that way
Mm.
of making things work with what you've got.
Uh-huh.
That works because
Uh-huh.
there's ways in which we do things because we've come from nothing that we
Right.
can find a way to do something.
Uh-huh.
So um I feel like, how would I put it? I feel like it was good. It was a really good experience. But I think, like I said before, when I realized that it wasn't accredited as high-end television, I
Uh-huh.
knew already that I couldn't stay there. I
Okay.
felt like, for a long period of time anyway, I felt like, I remember when I was in my interview, I was like, I'm going to be here for like 5 years. Gone were the days where you say forever. I was very clear, like 5 years, I'll
Uh-huh.
be here. Then I made it for 2.5.
Mm.
And it was because I felt like, oh, I've hit the ceiling now. I feel like the
Mm.
content that we're making is only going to be the same kind of content, but I don't shade them. I was able to pitch a project to them. I went in with a mindset thinking I want to make an unscripted faith series. That was my
Uh-huh.
idea, but I never say that writing is my strength. So I had this idea and I had this concept, and it's just been something I was playing with, but it
Uh-huh.
wasn't there in the foreground. But I was able to pitch. So I thought, you know what? Something that I love talking about is music and Black people.
Uh-huh. Uh,
So
same.
I then pitched a project about music.
Yeah.
Was it music? I think no, it was just about it was called Melanated Stories. So it
Uh-huh.
was generally just people with color, and I put melanated on purpose because I didn't want to put black, because
Mhm.
I wanted it to just be people with a strong concentration of melanin. You can
Mhm.
take that how you want to take that.
The
If
hue.
I
That's
then
cool.
said it was black stories and then
Mhm.
I put Asian people in it, I'm sure but I would have had pushback. So I deliberately
Right.
said melanin. I also did
Mhm.
that because it wasn't meant to be a Black History Month project because it was on melanin. However,
Mhm.
it ticked a box. So it
Mhm.
became the project that came out for October, which is our Black History Month project. Again, I
Right.
guess because
Mhm.
what you mentioned about color
Mhm.
earlier.
Mhm.
And so I was like, cool, I did
Mhm.
the thing. And I
Mhm.
done it with my head held high. And I was like, wow, you guys actually allowed me to come in here. I've been there, I think I had been there less than a year. I pitched something and they gave me the
Mhm.
funding for it.
Mhm.
But the way
Amazing.
that they did the structure,
Mhm.
I never ever knew what the budget was. That's not how they
Mhm.
structured the teams,
Mhm.
which in my head, I know that that's not correct because the producer should know what
Yeah.
the budget is. So what I learned from that organization is in a lot of charities, you structure it how you want to because
Mm.
it's not as high end. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So
Yeah.
their structuring may not be how it you know it to be. So
Mhm.
that was things where I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not gonna learn more about budgeting if I stay here. I
Mhm.
know how to handle a budget very well because I've done it before moving here, but the way in which you lay out the hierarchy means I will never get there. And it
Right.
wasn't necessarily because I didn't have the experience. I realized
Mhm.
that it was I had to be there for longer. Like I had to prove
Mhm.
myself. So I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. So it was
Mhm.
kind of like I felt like I hit a wall, and I felt
Mhm.
like the only way for me to progress would have been for me to become a manager, and I didn't want to manage anybody. I love being on the ground and producing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess it
Okay.
was different ways of doing things. I
Mhm.
wouldn't knock it because I learned stuff, but then I also feel like I shared stuff which I didn't think I
Mhm.
was going to do because I
Mhm.
assumed that it would have all been a certain way, if that makes
Right.
sense. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um and the film that you was referring to, the scripted
Mhm.
film, is called Age of Quarrel. I gotta make sure I say that. My
Yes.
baby, that was done in Bristol, and that was hard. That was the biggest
Mm.
production that I've done as an independent without a production company over me. Massive budget, and it wasn't even London,
Mm.
in London. And we're in the post of that at the moment. I just saw the second cut. Just had a
Yes.
marketing meeting about it just before now. Still
Mhm.
trying to raise funding for that to get it finished because it's an ongoing process. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Amazing. I love that. So before
yeah.
we go, I want to ask you this. So like what is the biggest lesson you've learned as being like a producer, first AD, production manager, and what skills do you need to be in this industry if you want to be a producer, and what advice do you give to people who just want to make it?
Okay. First thing, one of the biggest things I have learned is to trust in your own source. Sometimes, even with the years I've had, as you would say, I can feel intimidated when I enter projects with people that I assume that seem and appear more advanced than me. So sometimes I don't do what Laurelle would normally do in a project, which might be the the rough edged way of doing something, because I'm with somebody that seems to know maybe the smoother way of doing something. And what I've found is in the end, I've still done the rough way because there wasn't anything wrong with the rougher way. I know how to graft the way I know how to graft. And I have to always believe that I am brought on a project for a reason. Someone didn't bring me on the project just to do, not that I'm ever a yes person, but to be silent
Mhm.
or to think that they know it. Hence why I'm the producer. I wasn't put beneath them, above the,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So that's
Yeah.
something that I've learned and that I will try my best to hold on to and remember. The second thing you said, what kind of skills? I
Mhm.
think organization is definitely key. I would like to say I have tendencies of OCD and I'm a control freak, 100%. I know that about myself, which is why this is the best job to have, because you are allowed to be in control. You have to have
Mhm.
people listen to you. And me being nitty gritty about stuff allows the project to be amazing. And what was the third thing you said? The
And
fourth.
what advice would you give to anybody who wants to like get into the industry?
The advice I would give is please don't ever stop trying to knock on doors and ask questions and DMs. It is disheartening, but what I learned is if I'm seeing big people make films, so let me give context. If I'm going on IMDb and I'm seeing some really great films with really good actresses that we all may know and love end up being exec producers on their own film, they're having to finance their own film. That's how that actually came about for us to see that story. How can little old me not think that I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
struggle to get finances or I'm going to struggle to get
Yeah.
my thing in the door?
Mm-hmm.
So it is hard, but I would suggest don't give up and try different avenues. As we've said already, it's not going to be the same for everybody. But what helped me is I knew that where I wanted to be was within the media. So I tried every door possible to then get to where I am now. And I can truly say that a lot of the experiences that I picked up along the way have all made me the roundabout person I am. I
Mm-hmm.
remember spending 2 weeks in a production house called Finalized Films. I don't know if they still exist. There is in Holborn. And I spent 2 weeks learning how to write reports on a script. Do you know how important
Mm-hmm.
that is as a producer? At the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know. I just thought it was a film company. And I think I was a
Mm-hmm.
bit disappointed that it was admin-y when I got there, but I learned so many great scripts and the way they
Mm-hmm.
taught me how to
Mm-hmm.
write a report on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned about film festivals for script writers back then.
Mm-hmm.
That has never left me. So as a
Mm-hmm.
producer, although you may not have the credit as a script editor, depending on when you come on a project, you actually are very much into reading that script, tearing that
Mm-hmm.
script apart,
Yeah.
helping the writer, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
always get script editor title in there or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's part of your job. So had I
Yep.
not have done that, doesn't mean I wouldn't have necessarily done it on the job, but it gave me great skills to be able to look at certain things now.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing would say is sometimes you can't get into one door, but expand your vision a bit. Go
Mm-hmm.
sideways because you will find a gap where you can slide
Mm-hmm.
through.
I love that. And it's so true what you said. It's so true. Like believing in your source. Like, and also I always say like trust your gut. Trust your
Yeah.
gut. You know, what's your gut telling you? You know, what's it telling you about this project? What's it telling you about this person who you're going to work with? You know, like
Yeah.
I've had so many experiences like that where it's like actors or directors or producers, whoever you've worked with, like what is it saying in here? And my gut has always been right about this person. And when it goes pear shaped, I'm like, see, you see, you
I
know,
knew there was something.
yeah, something, you know, like yeah, you know. So if I'm not moved by it,
Yeah.
or and it's also always okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to every single project because you
Yes.
feel like you know what it is. Like as producers, we have to be so specific about what projects we're also choosing. Yes, what Laurelle said was great about seeing the potential. Yeah, I've done that too, where you're seeing the potential or seeing how this can benefit yourself or each other later on down the line. Cool. But how's it going to benefit your career as a producer if you're doing the same kind of stuff? Where are you going to take your career to the next level?
Stretch
Yeah,
thyself.
like these short films and these little independent stuff mainly benefit the director. It sets them up into a whole nother stratosphere where you as a producer, you're just going to be left with, okay, oh, next one I've got to try and raise money for. So definitely try to narrow it down specifically, you know? So definitely do that. So guys, hope you've really enjoyed listening to this episode of Just Listen to Laurelle and I talk about producer to producer, her journey. She's
That's
amazing.
right. Oh, bless you.
Yes. And
Me
so where can
too.
people find you? Like where can they stay updated with like your new work, what you've done before and stuff like that?
So before I go, I have to say, I
Uh-huh.
am actually Laurelle Wade, but I go by Laurelle Jones because I worked too hard for that name.
I was
But
gonna
if I
ask
don't
you,
say it,
but I had a
if I
feeling you was gonna say that because I
if I
know.
don't
See, we're here. We're here.
if I
Don't
don't
tell
say it,
you.
I don't want my husband to feel like I don't love I loves
Yeah.
him, okay?
Yeah.
But my name just has to stay as Laurelle Jones. It's
Mm-hmm.
just easier that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's your
Anyway,
stage
so
name now. Okay,
yeah,
that's what it is.
it's my
Okay.
statement. So Laurelle Jones, you can
Mm-hmm.
find me on all socials as Laurelle Jones. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Instagram, Facebook. I don't really use it, but I use the groups. I don't do I'm on Twitter, but I feel like my main thing is Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, but I feel like if I go on it, it's for research purposes. I don't
Mhm.
have a website because I just don't think I would update it enough, and I'm lazy, but I may get one. So yeah, Laurelle
Uh-huh.
Jones, and it's spelled, you'll see how it's spelled.
Yes, I will put everything here. Well,
Thank
Laurel, it's been
you.
so great having you on. Thank you so much. And
Ah,
guys, thank you for tuning back into season 4B. I know we've been on a bit of a hiatus, but if you've seen my previous episode, you've seen that I've been very busy and just life took over. So we're back and on a new home studio. So it's exciting. So yeah, so stay tuned, guys, for new episodes coming soon.
Can I say one last thing? I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
big up Kashif because he's doing amazing. I don't know how my man's on season 4 and out here vlogging and out here producing. I think you don't belittle your consistency. I know sometimes it may not be where you want to be, but that's why they say reach for the stars, innit? And then you might just
Yeah.
get the clouds because the clouds are
Uh-huh.
still doing good. So well done, bro. I'll take my hat off to you because I could
Thank you.
never, but you can't.
Thank you. I am just an all around creative. I'm a nerd. Like, I do content creation now and I love it. Listen, I'm more on, people see some of the stuff I do on Instagram, but it's more so on TikTok and YouTube anyway. So it's like, yeah, there's way more on there. Way more. You'll see, I'm pushing the Black British agenda. So stay tuned. Thanks again, guys. Stay tuned for new episodes coming
Bye.
soon.